Hi, hello everyone. My name is Hadil, and today we're going to talk about outsourcing objects, getting objects from other artists, which also helps in supporting your fellow artists, and it makes your job a lot easier. When it comes to modeling, I'm not the best at it because I haven't really practiced it. I know that if I practice more and more, that I'll be able to model more objects. By the end of 2023, I started modeling a little bit more. It takes a long time to do that. Being slow at it shouldn't hinder me from doing it. And honestly, I enjoy what I create in the end. I really liked creating this bike. It took a long time, but I also like supporting other artists, especially for things like plants and things that are a little bit more complicated or things that I don't really need to remake just because I want to show that I can make it. For instance, like textures and materials. I do outsource all of these. I don't really create any of the natural materials that you see. So if it's a concrete background or if it's tiles, I don't really create it myself. I'd love to create some myself because I think it's really fun to create that. However, I think it's also important to support other artists and to use what they're putting out there, whether they're selling it or putting out for free, which is incredibly generous because I know how long it takes to create some of this stuff. And I know that if a person is putting it out for free, they're really, really loving it. Not that anyone who's selling their products are not loving what they're doing. But today we're only going to talk about outsourcing objects, so not materials, because I want to talk about the websites that I use to download materials from in the textures and materials tutorial, which I've been talking about in every tutorial basically, but it's coming, I promise. Wait for the letter T and it's going to be here. The first website I want to show you is one that I've used often, and that is CG Trader. It's a cool website that has a lot of free objects as well as reasonably priced objects. I have purchased things from them before. I've used this before when I wanted to use interior design objects like a bed and a side table for this project because I wanted to lay out a bedroom and put on a phone, but then scatter a bunch of books on the ground. So I needed to get a few things that I didn't want to take the time to model. So what I do is just look for these things. As I said, the majority of the time I'm looking for plants. So let's search for plant. And you immediately get a lot of amazing stuff. I have paid for some plants because I do use them a lot in my projects. And sometimes the free plants are not that great. And you get a bunch of amazing ones for $9 for this set. But you can definitely filter it by the free stuff. And there are still a lot of amazing things. And what I do is just check if it has an OBJ or a Blender file. For this one, it has an OBJ and then it has an Autodesk 3D. So if you have a 3D Max software, you can use it. Some of them have Blender files that you can append from. But if it has an OBJ, I'm fine. I'll get it. And some of them will have the materials as well. This has the materials and the textures, so you can add them to it because if it's an OBJ, if you're importing an OBJ, you won't get it textured like this. You'll have to add the textures in the materials nodes area in the shader node editor. But this is what you get initially as an object. And then all of these images are already created for the UV maps for all of these plants. It's just because we haven't talked about textures and materials yet, I cannot really show you any of it because it will become a textures and materials tutorial. But we'll definitely go into that someday. So you get free out of CG Trader and paid objects that are worth it, 100%. And then another one that I found out about later in 2023, I haven't used it yet, but I wanted to share it with you, and that is Sketchfab. If you go to Explore, you can find all of these different categories, but you can also search for something specific, and then you can look at the 3D model. The only reason why I have never used this before is because it has some different licenses, but you can definitely specify the type of license. Then there are some that you need to credit the author of, some you can use commercially, some you can't. So it's a bunch of licenses that you can search by depending on what you need the objects for. But there are some really, really cool stuff like this table over here. I don't know where I would use something like this, but it is incredibly cool. It's something that I've seen in real life, but yeah, it's not easy to find stuff like this that are for free. It's just the crediting that you need to take care of. Also, because I download all of this stuff into one folder, it's a hassle to keep track of everything, but I know that personally I want to track all of that and it's going to take a lot of time. So I just avoid using it altogether. But if you're someone who's looking for some really creative stuff, you can look for it on this website. So yeah, those are the two websites that I know of. If you know of any more that provide free and paid products, then please do share them in the comments. Also, if you have some for materials and textures, that would be fine since it's about outsourcing objects and that can entail materials as well because they sometimes come with their own materials. Yeah, this is an extremely short tutorial as well. For these specific letters, I didn't have anything specific I wanted to share that I use in my workflow since this challenge is specific to my workflow in Blender that I've used for the past 3 years or so. And yeah, I'll probably talk to you next week. Bye.